Steve, keenly awaiting any developments from these meetings, but what's the key takeaway?
Well, the key takeaway is what can Xi Jinping do to get Vladimir Putin perhaps to come to a negotiating table with the other parties? Look, the issue is not between Moscow and Beijing. They have that no-limits partnership, obviously, even though I might add Xi Jinping did not reiterate that pledge of a no-limits partnership. We all know every relationship has limits, and obviously the war in Ukraine, since that pledge was made before the war started more than a year ago, has been tested. Now, the key takeaway here could be if Xi Jinping goes to Moscow, which he's there for 3 days starting yesterday, can he move Putin? Can he persuade him to perhaps back off on the war? That would be progress. But so far, everything before the cameras has been less about the war and more about their relationship. Let me just paraphrase a few things that they said about each other. Xi, in those opening comments, didn't even mention the war in Ukraine. He said mostly that China values its relationship with Russia. He did not, however, as I said, reiterate that no-limits policy. Putin called Xi a dear friend and said Moscow is ready to discuss Beijing's blueprint for a ceasefire. And that's the big issue here. What is exactly the details? What are the details in this 12-point blueprint that Beijing sort of unveiled last month, only to be fairly derided quickly by the United States, its European allies, and Ukraine, because it doesn't necessarily address the withdrawal of Russian troops from Ukrainian soil. So there's a lot of non-starters here with Beijing's proposal, but clearly Xi Jinping is in Moscow to project himself as a neutral party and a global statesman to try and broker some sort of ceasefire or peace. It's a big task, obviously, as these two gentlemen sort of dig in their heels on their relationship.